The unexpected welcome. The massive shadow fell across Earth's moon like a dark omen. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Talon, watching the blue marble that hung in space before him. His red scales caught the light from the command displays as his yellow eyes studied the planet with predatory interest. Behind him, the largest invasion fleet in Draconian history waited in perfect formation. "Report, Commander Zixon," Vextar rumbled, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 17 worlds. Commander Zixon approached with measured steps, his claws clicking against the metal deck. "The planet shows minimal technological development, Admiral. We detect primitive communication satellites, a small orbital station, and basic atmospheric craft. Their energy signatures suggest they still use fossil fuels for most transportation." Vextar's mouth curved into what might have been a smile if dragons could smile. "Perfect. Another primitive world that will surrender without a fight. How many inhabitants?" "Approximately 8 billion, scattered across 7 continents. They appear to be divided into separate nations that compete with each other. Classic pre-unity civilization." The Admiral nodded slowly. This would be easier than expected. The Draconian Empire had a simple policy for primitive worlds: demand surrender, demonstrate superior firepower if necessary, then establish colonial rule. Most species took one look at their massive ships and gave up immediately. "Open a communications channel to the planet," Vextar ordered. "Let's get this over with quickly." Far below on Earth, Captain Sarah Chen sat in the command center of the North American Space Defense Installation, buried 300 feet beneath the Colorado Mountains. Her dark eyes focused on the screen showing the alien fleet as warning lights bathed the room in red. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet," reported Lieutenant Marcus Torres, his fingers flying over his console. "Put it through," Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. She had trained for this scenario her entire career, though she had never really believed it would happen. The main screen flickered, then showed the imposing figure of Admiral Vextar. His massive frame filled the display, scales gleaming and eyes burning with predatory confidence. "Inhabitants of the third planet," Vextar began, his translated words echoing through the command center. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Draconian Imperial Fleet. Your world is now claimed by the Draconian Empire. You have one of your planetary rotations to surrender completely. Resistance will result in the destruction of your major population centers." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. "Friendly fellow," muttered Dr. James Walsh, the chief scientist assigned to the facility. His graying hair was disheveled from hours of analyzing the alien ships. "Their technology is definitely more advanced than anything we've shown publicly. But what, Doctor?" Sarah asked. "They're scanning us with very basic sensor arrays. It's like they're not even trying to look deeper. They think we're primitive." Sarah's expression didn't change, but a spark appeared in her eyes. "Good. Let them keep thinking that. Lieutenant Torres, activate Protocol 7. It's time to show our guests that appearances can be deceiving." Across the planet, hidden installations began coming online. Facilities that had been disguised as research stations, communication hubs, and even shopping centers revealed their true purpose. For decades, Earth's governments had secretly prepared for this possibility. While they appeared to squabble and compete publicly, behind the scenes they had built a unified defense network. In orbit, Admiral Vextar grew impatient. "Send the first wave," he commanded. 20 scout ships. Make sure the humans see their cities burn if they don't surrender immediately." The sleek Draconian scouts detached from the main fleet, their energy weapons charging as they descended toward Earth's atmosphere. Each ship was powerful enough to level a human city, and their pilots had never encountered resistance they couldn't easily overcome. Captain Sarah Chen watched the approaching ships on her tactical display. "All stations, this is command. Execute Phantom Protocol. Show them what they expect to see." Across Earth, ancient-looking fighter jets and missiles launched to meet the alien scouts. To the Draconians, it looked exactly like what they expected: a primitive species making a desperate last stand with obsolete technology. "Look at them," laughed Commander Zixon as he watched the human aircraft approach. "They're using chemical propulsion and metal projectiles. Our shields will stop their weapons like raindrops." But as the first wave of scouts engaged the human fighters, something unexpected happened. The human aircraft moved with unusual precision, their formations too perfect, their tactics too coordinated. Several Draconian pilots began to feel uneasy. "These pilots are better than expected," reported Scout Leader Krath. "They're using evasive patterns I've never seen before." In the command center, Sarah watched her remote-controlled decoy fighters perform their choreographed dance. The real pilots were safe on the ground, controlling the aircraft from thousands of miles away. But that wasn't the plan's most important element. "All fighters, execute withdrawal pattern Delta," Sarah ordered. "Lead them to the garden." The human aircraft began retreating toward the planet's surface, apparently outmatched by the superior alien technology. The Draconian scouts followed, pressing their advantage and moving into the perfect position. "Now they're running," Vextar observed with satisfaction. "Pursue them. Let's end this quickly." What the Draconians didn't know was that Earth's real defenses had nothing to do with the visible aircraft. As the scouts chased the retreating fighters into Earth's upper atmosphere, they passed through what appeared to be empty space. But hidden among the thousands of pieces of space debris that orbited the planet were weapons that had waited patiently for this moment. Dr. Walsh's fingers hovered over his control panel. "All garden systems are locked on target. Energy builds are complete. Fire," Sarah ordered quietly. Suddenly, what the Draconians had dismissed as space junk revealed its true nature. Disguised weapon platforms activated all around the scout fleet, unleashing concentrated particle beams that cut through the alien ship's shields like hot knives through butter. The Draconians had prepared for primitive human weapons, but these energy signatures matched their own technology. On the Crimson Talon, Admiral Vextar watched in shock as his entire first wave was systematically destroyed in less than 30 seconds. The weapon platforms disappeared back into the debris field as quickly as they had appeared, leaving no trace of their presence. "What just happened?" Vextar roared, his claws digging into the command rail. "Unknown weapons platforms," Admiral Zixan reported, his voice shaking. "Energy signatures consistent with Class VI particle beam arrays. But according to our scans, the humans don't have that technology." "Scan again," Vextar demanded. "Scan everything." As the Draconian fleet began more intensive scans of the space around Earth, they started to discover the truth. Hidden among what appeared to be communication satellites, research stations, and orbital debris was a defense network that rivaled their own technology. Worse, the energy signatures suggested the humans had been building this network for decades. In the command center, Sarah allowed herself a small smile as she watched the alien fleet's formation shift into a more defensive posture. "Phase 1 complete," she announced to her team. "They're scanning harder now. They're starting to understand what they're really facing." Lieutenant Torres looked up from his station. "Admiral, we're detecting increased energy patterns from their main fleet. It looks like they're preparing for a full assault." "Good," Sarah replied. "Let them come. It's time they learned that sometimes the predator becomes the prey." Dr. Walsh pulled up a holographic display showing the positions of Earth's hidden defenses. Red dots marked weapon platforms, blue squares showed shield generators, and green triangles indicated sensor networks. The display revealed a defensive grid that spanned the entire solar system. 40 years of preparation," he said quietly. 40 years of every nation on Earth working together in secret while pretending to compete in public. They have no idea what they've stumbled into. As Admiral Vextar studied the new scan results, a cold realization began to form in his reptilian mind. This was no primitive world defended by desperate savages. This was a trap carefully prepared and patiently waiting for someone exactly like him to spring it. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Vextar felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. The humans had just demonstrated technology that rivaled the Draconian Empire's best weapons. More importantly, they had shown patience, planning, and tactical thinking that suggested a level of sophistication he had never encountered. "Commander," he said slowly, "prepare the main fleet for combat. Full defensive formation. And send a message to the Draconian High Command. Tell them we may have underestimated the humans." The Dragon's Awakening. Admiral Vextar paced the bridge of the Crimson Talon like a caged predator. His yellow eyes burned with a mixture of rage and something far more dangerous: respect for an enemy he had underestimated. The main fleet now hung in defensive formation around Earth, no longer the confident predators they had been hours before. "Status report," he demanded, his voice carrying a new edge of caution. Commander Zixen approached with obvious reluctance. "Fleet-wide scans have revealed extensive defensive networks throughout the system, Admiral. The humans have concealed weapons platforms on asteroids, hidden bases on their moon, and what appears to be a complete early warning grid extending past their outer planets." "How long?" Vextar asked quietly. "Based on the technology integration and orbital mechanics, we estimate they've been building this network for at least 4 decades. This wasn't hastily constructed, Admiral. This was planned." The implications hit Vextar like a physical blow. 40 years ago, the humans would have been even more primitive by Draconian standards. Yet they had somehow anticipated this moment and prepared for it with a patience and foresight that impressed even him. "Open a channel to the Human Command Center," he ordered. "I want to speak with whoever is in charge of their defense." On Earth, Captain Sarah Chen received the incoming transmission request with raised eyebrows. "Interesting. He wants to talk now." Dr. Walsh looked up from his analysis station. "Their fleet formation has shifted to full defensive. They're taking us seriously now." "Good. Let's see what the dragon has to say." Sarah activated the communication link. Admiral Vextar's imposing form appeared on the main screen, but now his posture was different. The casual arrogance was gone, replaced by the bearing of a professional soldier facing a worthy opponent. "Human Commander," Vextar began, "I am Admiral Vextar of the Draconian Imperial Fleet. You have surprised me today. That is not something that happens often." Sarah straightened in her chair, meeting the alien's gaze directly. "Captain Sarah Chen, Earth Defense Command. I'm glad we could make a good first impression, Admiral. Your defensive capabilities are impressive. My intelligence reports were clearly inadequate. I would like to understand how a species that appears primitive has developed such sophisticated weaponry." "Appears primitive," Sarah repeated. "That's the key phrase, isn't it, Admiral? You see what we wanted you to see. Every species in the galaxy probably made the same mistake." Vextar's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're suggesting this has happened before." "I'm suggesting that a species that survives long enough to develop interstellar travel doesn't do so by being careless. We may not have faster-than-light ships yet, Admiral, but we've had decades to prepare for this day." On the bridge of the Crimson Talon, Commander Zixen whispered urgently in Vextar's ear. The Admiral's expression grew more thoughtful. "Captain Chen, my science officer informs me that your defensive grid shows design principles we recognize. Some of it appears to be based on Draconian technology. That should be impossible." Sarah's expression didn't change, but Dr. Walsh stepped into the camera's view. "Admiral, I'm Dr. James Walsh, Chief Science Officer for Earth Defense. You'd be surprised what a motivated species can learn from wreckage." "Wreckage?" Vextar's voice carried a dangerous undertone. 3 Draconian scout ships crashed on Earth over the past 50 years. We assumed they were advanced scouts for a larger force. We were right, weren't we? The implications of this revelation sent shockwaves through the Draconian command structure. If the humans had been reverse engineering Draconian technology for 5 decades, their capabilities might be far greater than anyone had imagined. Vextar made a decision that would have been unthinkable hours earlier. Captain Chen, I propose a temporary ceasefire while we reassess the situation. A ceasefire suggests there's currently a war, Admiral. From our perspective, you attacked our space, we defended it, and you stopped attacking. We're simply waiting to see what you'll do next. The simple logic of Sarah's statement hit Vextar hard. From a strategic standpoint, the humans were absolutely correct. The Draconians had been the aggressors, and Earth had simply responded to an invasion. What do you want? Vextar asked directly. For you to leave our system and not come back with hostile intent, Sarah replied immediately. We have no interest in conquest or empire building. We just want to be left alone to develop at our own pace. And if we refuse? Dr. Walsh stepped forward again. Admiral, your fleet is impressive, but you're currently sitting in the middle of the most heavily fortified star system this side of the galactic core. Every asteroid, every piece of space debris, every seemingly innocent satellite is potentially a weapon or sensor platform. You came here expecting to conquer primitives. Instead, you found a fortress. To demonstrate their point, Sarah activated a system display that showed the true extent of Earth's defenses. The holographic representation revealed weapon platforms on distant asteroids, sensor networks extending throughout the solar system, and defensive installations that had been hidden in plain sight for decades. Vextar studied the display with the eye of a professional warrior. What he saw was both impressive and terrifying. The humans had created a defensive network that could potentially destroy his entire fleet if they chose to activate it all at once. You could have destroyed us when we first arrived, he realized. Why didn't you? Because destruction should always be the last option. Sarah replied, We hoped you might be reasonable. Reasonable? Vextar's laugh carried a note of bitter irony. Captain, in my 300 years of military service, I have never encountered a species that chose negotiation when they held overwhelming military advantage. Then you've been dealing with the wrong species, Admiral. This simple statement caused something to shift in Vextar's worldview. Every species the Draconians had encountered had followed predictable patterns. They either surrendered immediately to superior force, or they fought desperately until they were destroyed. The humans were doing neither. What are you proposing? Vextar asked. A simple exchange, Sarah replied. You leave our system peacefully, and in return, we share some of our defensive technology with you. Not weapons, but defensive systems that could protect Draconian worlds from truly hostile forces. Commander Zixen looked shocked. They're offering to help us. Why would you do that? Vextar asked suspiciously. Dr. Walsh answered. Because, Admiral, the universe is a dangerous place. If you've been conquering worlds for military advantage, it's probably because you're afraid of something bigger and more dangerous than you are. Defensive technology could let you protect what you have instead of constantly needing to take more. The truth of this observation hit the Draconian command structure like a thunderbolt. The Empire's expansion had always been driven by the need for resources and strategic depth to defend against the Void Swarm, an extragalactic threat that consumed everything in its path. You know about the Swarm? Vextar asked quietly. We know something is driving expansion across this part of the galaxy, Sarah replied. Multiple species building empires, all expanding in the same direction. That suggests they're running from something. Not running, Vextar corrected. Preparing. Then help us prepare too. Share information about this threat, and we'll share our defensive innovations. Both our species become stronger. For Admiral Vextar, this moment represented a fundamental shift in his understanding of warfare, diplomacy, and survival. The humans weren't just tactically sophisticated, they were strategically wise. They understood that sometimes the best victory was the one that created an ally instead of destroying an enemy. Captain Chen, Vextar said formally, I accept your proposal. The Draconian fleet will withdraw from your system, and we will begin formal diplomatic communications. Perhaps both our species can benefit from this encounter. As the massive Draconian fleet began to withdraw from Earth's orbit, both sides realized that something unprecedented had occurred. For the first time in known galactic history, a first contact scenario had ended not with conquest or destruction, but with mutual respect and the beginning of an alliance. In the command center, Sarah Chen watched the alien ships depart and allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had passed its first test on the galactic stage, not through superior firepower, but through superior thinking. Dr. Walsh approached her console. "Captain, Admiral Vextar is requesting permission to leave a small diplomatic ship in our outer system to begin formal negotiations." "Granted," Sarah replied. "And Doctor, start preparing briefings on the Void Swarm. If we're going to face this threat, we need to understand what we're up against." As Earth's sun set over the Colorado Mountains, the planet's inhabitants remained largely unaware that their world had just avoided invasion and gained its first alien ally. But for those in the command center, the real work was just beginning. The galaxy was a dangerous place, but humanity had just proven it belonged among the stars.